Welcome back to the Fit by Scully Twins channel. Have you ever had that worst race and you want to tell everybody about it, or you just like, I'm never running that race again? Especially if you have run about 20, 30, 40 races, even if that's 5K, half marathon, 10K, marathon, I don't care what race you did. Most likely you will have a worse race if you've done a lot of races. Well, on this channel, we're going to tell you right today in this video our worst race and what we have learned from it. So stick around to learn those great things. And on this channel, we talk about all things fitness and running related. So make sure you subscribe to be a part of our tribe, because we do post new videos every week, and that is on Thursday and Saturday. So come be a part of the tribe where we'll get you right. So let's go ahead and learn more about our worst race experience. So we are in race season, and we definitely want to recap our worst races to help get you ready for your race. Now, when you show up to your race, you want to have fun and set realistic goals. You also want to make sure you are checking the race site so you can be able to train correctly for that race course, which is something that I didn't do for one of my races. I showed up to a race called BATTLESHIP Half Marathon in Wilmington, North Carolina. And at this race, it was elevation. It was considered a hilly race for me because I was living in Orlando, Florida at the time, which didn't have a lot of hills. So therefore, I didn't train for any hills. I only trained on flat surface, and that race burned me out. But I learned something from that race, to always check the race site for the elevations and what type of run it was going to be. Is it going to be a trail run? Is it going to be road run? So therefore I could always know how to train for that race. So definitely we would like to give that advice for you. But because of that race, which is every race you can learn something and be able to focus on that positive for that race. So something I had learned for that race, it was to always check the race site, which had helped me in my other races, because as I run around the states, my sister and I, we try to do the 50 states. So we are running at almost a lot of states. So therefore, a lot of states are hilly, especially we in Virginia. Virginia is a very hilly state. So therefore, I've been prepared for my other races. Another thing is you want to be mindful of what type of runner you are, as in what seasons you do the best in. So one of the races that for me that I had chose for my worst race is a race I chose to do in the summer. It was a summer race, and I chose this race because it was in July, and July is my birthday month. So I decided, hey, I'll do my first half marathon in my birthday month, so it could be very significant for me. But this race was OCALA half marathon, and it was outside Orlando, Florida. And the one thing about this race, it was hot. It was hot, hot, hot. That's what I remember the most about this race. It was great because it did have trails, so you did have some cooling period, but it was hot. And I was so excited about this race because I was beating my sister in the first half, but then I got really hot and burnt out. I had to stop at every water station, which was slow my time. My sister eventually caught me and beat me at this race. So after that, I have never done a summer race because I know I'm not a summer racer. So I usually take the summers off from my running, and then I go back running, in the fall. So generally, I want to leave you with that you need to be focusing on always find a positive in every race, because not every race will be your best race, but you'll always have another race to redeem yourself. You want to rush the process. And you also want to find time to find your mental toughness, especially if you're doing marathons and ultra marathons. Some of these races are done on a trail, which can be very tough. So definitely get your toughness and go have fun on this race season. You want to know when to replace your running shoes. So I was going into racing my full marathon at CHEVRON Houston Marathon. I was very excited about the race because of the good reviews that we saw online for this race. So this race gives you that good experience, like everyone is elite runner, which I really love about that experience. So therefore I was going in very excited. But the shoes I was wearing, I kind of knew ahead of the race that these shoes need to be replaced, but I thought I still had some traction to run this race, which was a very bad idea, first off, going into this race. I was able to run this race comfortably for the first 8 miles. About miles 6 to 8, I really could feel that the shoe was not going very well for me. So I stopped into the tent. They have an aid tent, so I was stopping at aid tent for some assistance. I was able to get assistance from the medical that was there, and then I decided to go on and keep running this race. But as I was running, I realized that this is not going to end well. So instead, I decided to drop out and go ahead and forfeit that race. I dropped out because of the injury that was causing. So although I was able to go to the tent again, and they was able to massage and trying to help me to get the stamina to keep going, I realized that this was going to be a continue on thing for that whole race because of the injury. My legs I was getting shins pain, my whole legs was just getting sore, and I was getting slower and slower. And honestly, I really dropped out because I didn't want to fat my time. I have a very good marathon time, which is below 4 hours, and I want to keep that. But that means that you definitely want to be making sure that you are replacing your running shoes at the right time, because therefore it can cause you injury, which is probably great that I dropped off anyway, because it was definitely causing me injury. So therefore I didn't want to stop my running career because of that. When you go into races, you cannot always count on mile markers to be accurate. So when you do races, you know that you want to do the inside of the race course to be able to get the most accurate of the mile marker, not the outside of this course. But when I ran the 13.1 Baltimore Inner Harbor half marathon, each mile marker, it just was so off. No matter if you was running inside or outside, they did not did that mile markers correctly. So the group of people that was with me at that time was very angry. One of the females was yelling at the volunteers like, this don't make sense, the mile markers are off, you guys need to do better at doing the mile markers, which is, first of all, that's not race etiquette. The volunteers is there, they don't really do the course and the mile markers, so definitely if you're upset about something, you can't take it to the volunteers. You need to find that race director and be able to give your complaint to them. But I really think the reason why the mile marker was off because of how the race was set up. You constantly run around the harbor continually, and the harbor is very wide. So therefore, I think that something was going off with that mile marker there, but definitely you want to have a GPS watch that will help you to be able to track your time and your pace. But that means that once we cross the finish line, most likely if we ran more than 13.1 miles, and that can happen. We ended up doing the OCALA Ladies First Half Marathon. So this was their first year doing this race, which could be a good and a bad thing to do a race the first year. So it's not a lot of reviews about this race. Oh boy, this race allows us to be able to run. It was a beautiful course, very hilly first of all, but you already know about our hill experiences through my sister. But the big thing that made this my first race is that it had no police support. So that means that we was running right on the road. We still had to run a road, but they didn't block off. They didn't block us off from the cars. That means cars was annoyed with us. They was riding around us, and some of them was so frustrated they was ready to knock us off the road. It was really that close run with the cars and the runners. It got to the point that we got to the finish line, and a lot of runners got together and complained about how afraid they was on that course. But we all finished, but it was not a great experience for any of those runners that I spoke with at the finish line, and neither for my sister and I, who was one of the runners on that course. So definitely make sure you do read the reviews if they do have the reviews, so you could be prepared for a race and could determine, do you want to do that race or not. Will my sister and I do that race again? Not at all. So next race I'm going to talk about is the race. That's what the race called the race. It was happening to be in Atlanta, Georgia. So my sister and I was very happy to support this race because of what it stands for, but unfortunately we have to mark it down as one of our worst races due to how it started out. So it was very congested due to that one-way road, and though police was out, they did not direct traffic. So therefore we came to the race at a good time to allow us to be able to start that race out early and head and on time with everyone else. And so, you know, when you come to races, it's already stressful. You're already in that hyper stress mindset. So therefore you get into, it's because of you to not be able to get to that start line on time, that even add more stress. And you don't want to go to a race very stressed out, especially if you're trying to perform well. So therefore, once we got to that race site, we had to start that race about 10 to 15 minutes late. So I think we're actually 5 to 10 minutes late. So the great thing is I did let us go ahead and run on that course, that coral, although the runs was already started out. But it did make a bad experience because we had to weave in and out through the back of the pack. And so that already bringing more stress into your body, as well as make it harder for you because now you run it harder than you normally would have if you was able to start that race on time. So definitely make sure that you are getting to race at least 30 minutes to an hour early due to you never know what could happen at the start line. Now you never want to start a race running too fast. You definitely want to make sure that you are training for whatever pace and distance that you are trying to train for that race. Now we're going to our first 5K, which was in Orlando, Florida, and was very excited about it because this will be our first race ever, and was kind of happy to be able to enter our first race. Now going to our first race, we decided that we're going to start at the front of the line because we did not want anyone in front of us. We want to be the front of the pack, which is a very bad decision for a beginner runner. This allowed us to be in the front with all the fast runner. And when they went out, boy, did they went out fast. We decided that we're going to stay at the front of the pack and just run fast with these other runners. So what happened in that race is that it was a downward slope and it looked like the race was going to end. We couldn't believe it. We did have our GPS watch, so we looked at our GPS watch and like, wow, this is not 3.1 miles, but whatever. We finna go it to the finish line. And we ran so fast because we wanted to beat everybody, remember? So therefore we ran fast to that supposedly finish line and realized that race was continuing on, which caused me to burn out tremendously. So therefore I did finish the race, but I really had to do a run and walk method to finish that race due to that burnout that I was doing at the beginning of the race and throughout the race because I never slowed down even after I realized that was not a finish line. So my advice to you is make sure that you are running your own race. So that means that you don't want to be going out too fast at the start of the race. You want to just gradually build up for whatever pace you is. And if you are a beginner runner, don't start at that beginning of that race course. Start where you think you need to be at, which most likely probably be that middle. So we hope you have learned some great tips and tricks that you could use for your future races. We are excited that you are thinking about entering races or just curious about what someone else experienced throughout their race. So we're happy to share that with you because you know right on this channel we'll get you right. So make sure you listen to our playlist for beginner runner, half marathon, and 5K to prepare you for your races. Until we see you next time, bye bye.